we're back for our minty coffee chat. Um, it's bloody cold here in the UK. There's some weird things going on, and we're going to have what I would almost call a girly chat. That's something that, Bryce and I, we're allowed to be interested in all the things that are going on that everyone else is and not having to know the answer. So what we're good, we've got a few important things to talk about today, Bryce, about an update on Kate Middleton, that you informed me about, because there's some weird things happening. I'm going to talk about all the horses that were loose in London yesterday as well, which is very peculiar. And obviously, I'm a horsey person, so got some insight into that. And also, probably along the way, touch upon how tricky it is for all of us, for our listeners, for everyone out there to make sense of what's going on in this mad world, and the political correctness, the spiritual bypassing, where if you're not allowed to have and the cultish behavior, where if you say something that someone disagrees with, you're immediately hung, drawn and quartered. So we've got a lot to talk about today.
We do, and it's how appropriate on. I was telling you before we signed in, we were kind of laughing about Mercury retrograde, and I had marked on my calendar for this week. Our friend Tamara had told us that yesterday, Wednesday, and today were going to be intense days, and I was preparing for some emotional intenseness. I didn't realize it was just going to be flat out chaos in my life. So for those watching right now, our friends watching, I'm just gonna let you guys know from one girly to another girly. I haven't washed my hair in 2 days. That's how Mercury retrograde's going for me. So if you're like me and you're having a very real human experience, I think this will be a very fun conversation to have where we can just look at the world around us. If you haven't washed your hair in 2 days, I feel you. I get it. Let's have some fun with this conversation and some seriousness too, to kind of help
Yeah.
us ground ourselves, right? And into our own experiences in this timeline.
Yeah. So in terms of, I mean, I'm not a royalist, but obviously I'm in the UK. I don't really watch the mainstream media, but you can't avoid certain things, particularly on X, etc. And Kate Middleton, let's talk about it. So there's some new information that you brought to light for me, which we're going to come on to in a minute. But the fact of the matter is I also, when you and I were messaging each other about this, I also saw a redacted video, and everyone knows I love the redacted YouTube channel, and they had put up a video on Kate Middleton, but it's been taken down now. So I'm desperate to contact them and find out why it's been taken down. Because Louis, their young Kate and William's youngest son, it was his 6th birthday this week, and it's tradition that they publish a photo the day before, which allows all the newspapers to get it in there the next day's newspaper on the day of his birthday. And this time, the photo that they posted had, well, it was weird. It wasn't, so it was meant to be, it was said it was an official photo that had been taken recently, but it also had the same shirt on of the photoshopped picture. And his tooth hadn't started to grow back, etc., etc. Some weird things. So this video was a really good video done by Redacted, and then I saved it to send you. And when I went to send it to you, it had been taken down from them, and I don't know why. I haven't seen them mention why. So if anyone knows, let me know. But the fact of the matter is, there's so much that we still don't know. She's still not being seen in public, and everyone shames you for saying it, because people who are going through, whether you're famous or not, you are still a human. You're entitled to your own personal life. And I 100% agree with that. But this is so out of character and so concerning. So do you want to fill us in about, first of all, boys, what are the Cassiopeans? Because
The
a lot of people won't have heard
Cassiopeans,
of them.
the Cassiopeans go hand in hand with the law of one. And my boyfriend has been following the Cassiopeans for many, many years. They've been channeled since 1994. All I really understand about it's us from the future, basically, is how they describe it. It's our consciousness from the future. And when they're channeled, they'll give a little bit of information, kind of yes and no questions, but sometimes they won't because they don't want to, even though it's us from the future, they don't want to mess with our free will. And so basically they haven't been wrong yet, which is why, with channeling, sometimes I'm very dubious with a lot of, I'll listen to channeling, but I always take it with a grain of salt, because when you're channeling, it's always got to come through the conduit, who is a human being just like us and has their own confirmation bias, all that kind of stuff. But with this group, it is very in line with the law of one. And again, they've been doing this since 1994 and they haven't been wrong yet. And
But can
they
I sort of, just for the listeners, what are some examples of what they've been right about?
oh God. Well, I've only been aware of them since the probably 2016.
Right.
But my boyfriend has followed them for they have been right about a lot of the we'll say the controllers of this movie. I don't like using the term movie, but just for algorithms
Mm.
with the timeline we're in, a lot of things have been said about certain people that then came true later or was proven to be correct later. Now, I will say, I want to say this before I forget. Laura Knight, who channels the Cassiopeans, and she's also like I have some of her books. She's a great researcher into historical truths. And funnily enough, you guys, my boyfriend just found out she's his third cousin. So that's wild that he's been following her for years and just found out she's his
Uh,
third cousin. His mother, he comes from the Knight family of Florida. But she wrote a book called Riding the Wave. There's a few books that is definitely suggested you read before you start to read the channelings. Because if you hop in right now, because they post it, and they've been posting since 1994, you might get a little bit lost in the way that they do this. Because I don't know if you noticed, Catherine, when I sent you, they
mm,
write literally everything down. Like literally
yeah.
everything is written down. So they're doing their work. People are over here in the corner watching TV or playing card games or whatever. Everything that's said is written down for so nothing is hidden, right? And so you have to kind of get used to the way it's written to understand who's speaking and who's answering, right? And so I was actually curious and waiting because I thought for sure they were going to talk about Kate Middleton. That was going to have to come up at some point. You know, they've talked about people in the past like Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism. They talked about how he was led by a reptilian, which makes a lot of sense. We're going over Mormonism with Chauncey on Aquarius Rising Africa. And my boyfriend gets notifications when they post, and he was like, they posted about Kate. And I was actually kind of like you, Catherine. I was shocked by what they had to say. But you said something in our text, which I kind of think is true. We think that the royals are at the top of the pyramid. They're not.
No.
They're puppets for, and Kathy said that on, I won't say her last name, but on our first episode over on the starts with an R, ends with an umble platform. She said you don't, like, she said, I'm paraphrasing, she said something like, you guys don't even know the people who are actually
Yeah.
behind, which is very, very small percentage. And so I think what the Cassiopeans have to say about what actually happened to Kate Middleton is going to be very shocking for people. But it definitely shows that they're controlled and they have to do things that maybe they don't, because they even said what happened to her. She didn't. Did you catch that where she didn't
Yeah.
want?
So what they're actually saying, and again, all I was asking here is we're going to come on to this, but do not jump straight in with the comments, because this is a discussion and we're saying what the Cassiopeans are saying, who are channelers who've been right about many, many things over the last, few decades.
30 years now. Yeah.
For years. So one of the things that we know is we know that we don't know the truth. So that's one thing that we definitely know, that the truth that we've been told is definitely, it's the only thing I know anyway, is that whatever we've been told is wrong with Kate. And we are calling her Kate Middleton because even though she is Catherine, Princess of Wales, everyone in the UK knows her as Kate. That's
Can
what
we
we know her
can we
as.
just say, can I just say something quickly about that? Because that pissed me off too.
Yeah,
You guys, just because a woman gets married doesn't erase her past.
yeah,
If I married my boyfriend and took his name, I'm still a Watson by birth. Like,
yeah.
even if I take his name, I'm still a Watson. My name is my mother's maiden name. And even though she's Bradley is her last name now, people still refer to her as one of the Bryce girls. Like that, I'm glad because people in my comment section were like, she's not Kate Middleton.
So ridiculous. It's like, and also, honestly, if that's the level of all you get out of the video, then you're probably not best watching our
No.
channel because it's not doing anything for you.
And I'm sorry you hate women so much that you think
Yeah,
women's lives are erased. Catherine, you're married? Was your childhood erased because you married your husband?
not at all. Not at all. And actually, the only reason I took, because I love my maiden name, but the only reason I took my husband's name is because I knew I really, really wanted children and I was hoping I would be lucky enough to have them. And I thought it overcomplicates things in my life if I've
Yeah.
got different surnames for the children. So that was purely the only reason that I did. But getting back to Kate, and to us, she's Kate. Everyone in the UK, she's Kate Middleton. And Princess of Wales. But very, very weird things going on, and obviously hasn't looked good. Bit like Princess Diana, she's always been a beautiful, very slim lady, but she's lost a lot of weight recently. So the supposed cancer video is very, very dubious. And a couple of things have happened this week as well, Bryce. She's also been given a new title by Prince Charles. I won't even bore people with what the details was, but just this week, a title that's never even been given before. Let me read you out what it is. And we've had the fact of the photo is very, very weird. So Kate Middleton makes history after receiving new royal title from King Charles, is the first royal companion named to this order. So it is she's a companion of honor. Now, for me, these titles just streak of masonry. I don't know. I don't know.
Down my
But
spinal
literally, so why has he just suddenly appointed her of this? It's very, very rare. Companions of honor. So we've got that going on. We've got the weird horses which we're going to come on to running through London, which, you know, could be a reasonable explanation for it, could not. We'll come on to that. But talk us through, Bryce, what the Cassiopeans have said about Kate.
The Cassiopean, and I sent you, so hopefully we can put the link to this reading so you can see the description box below, was forced to take this, the Zappity Doodah. And according to what I was reading, you have to go down a bit before they get to it. She did not want to take it, but she needed to take it to, you know, encourage the masses. They also said the same thing about the Queen, that a lot of, now she was also like, what, 96? So, you know, there's that too. I don't think many people are questioning when you're 96, right? But when you're 42, there's some questions, right? You're young. And so basically it sounds like the same thing that happened to Justin Bieber is what it sounds like to me. Now, I'm not a doctor. You might have more insight when you read, Catherine, because you read what they say about something neurological happened.
Yeah.
Where maybe, you know, Justin Bieber, half of his face kind of froze. And
that's called Bell's palsy. So, and it's a neurological condition. It can be brought on by stress. It can be brought on by viruses, whatever you think a virus is. It's quite a common side effect after shingles, but it's also a common side effect after the Abadidoodah.
Yeah. So, and just like, you know, just obviously he's younger than Kate, but these are young people. So this is not, you know, and apparently it sounds like she also has like almost like Parkinson's, where she's shaking a lot, to the point where, and I think they asked it more than once. I'll have to go back and reread it. Is it noticeable? And they said absolutely. Like there's no getting around it, that something has happened. She's been injured. We'll just say it that way. And so she cannot be seen by the public because it is noticeable. And I even, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain, they even said, well, could it be explained by the explanation they've given us? Can people see her and think? And that they said no, this is not cancer, that this is.
But and this is where it's really fascinating. So basically, you're all getting the code word. You know the platform we're on, the Jabbity Doodah, in terms of injured. Now,
mindful in the comment section, guys. Please be mindful because they watch you. So be mindful to write it in the comments too.
But I also saw a really good video by Dr. Peter McCullough. Again, take it or leave it, what you think about this. But when she came out with her cancer diagnosis, he was coming out and sort of explaining what did and didn't make sense from the series of medical events that we've been told. And one of the cancers that has really gone off the rise, and I personally know people that have died of this since this, is pancreatic cancer, pancreas cancer, and that's a really aggressive form. So the thing is, two things could be true. So if it is this damage, then the cancer diagnosis could be true, because we know there's a really uptake of turbo cancers, and look who we've got Prince Charles and Kate. But the thing I wanted to talk with you and get your thoughts on, Bryce, and very carefully written in the comments, guys, is look, does this mean sacrificial lambs? Because there's so many talks about how many of these, and if everyone's listening, you'll just have to watch me patting my arm, being placebos. So for me, there's no way one or two members of the royal family, and whether you think Kate's not born into the royal family anyway, well, come on, guys, look at the parenting so many royals across the world are not what we're told they are. So for me, that's a little bit irrelevant. It wouldn't be an accident if they'd been given the real thing. So this is the thing that really gets to me. If you're going to have potentially one or two members of the royal family, I find it highly unlikely Prince Charles, given the fact that he's so into natural medicine, so into homeopathy, but then they're saying he's going into hospital having cancer treatment, which is against all his belief system. So the whole point about this, Bryce, is there's so many questions that just do not make sense.
Math ain't mathin'. It's yeah, it's well, it just goes to show you guys again, we would think that the royal family would do a fake one if they're doing it on
Yeah.
TV but they're not, because we perceive them as being at the top of the food chain. They're not. They're
Mm.
puppets. And so they have to do what they're told by whoever is puppeting them. And I think that's the thing. I don't actually believe there are any placebos because of free will. I think that if the quote unquote good guys were to put, if there are, I don't think there actually are. I think they're gray hats, but I don't know if they're actually. But if they were to put, if somebody says that they want it, and you were to give them a fake one, that goes against their free will. And if you're going against somebody's free will choice, then you are in service to self, not service to others. So now, with that being said, what we also have become aware of is that they have what they called hot SHOTs and non. So, like where I live, for example, a lot of people who got the Zapardi doodah, they haven't had side effects because
Yeah.
it's so hot down here that it potentially killed the
Yeah.
stuff before, so it didn't do it. So we're looking at like a lot of people in warmer climates, we're not seeing as high of a reactionary level, because it could have been just a simple, literally luck of the draw, because they were giving you a real one that had been, we'll say, deactivated. It had been deactivated.
Yeah.
Whereas in a colder climate like in the UK, it might hold more potency because it
Yeah.
wasn't warm enough to deactivate, we'll say. So, and again, I was not expecting that. Were you expecting that at all? I was not
So
expecting
I've
that.
got so many questions about it in terms of the bigger picture. So I'm just going to fire them off and see which ones you want to go with. So the first thing is like if powers above were deliberately trying to get rid of certain members of the royal family, then the last way I think they would do it would be like this, because there could be a backlash and it could come out that which, and they don't want everyone knowing about all these reactions, these adverse reactions. So for me, that's a big red flag to me in terms of I haven't found an explanation yet, but I'm sure someone will give me one as to why that would be the case.
I
Uh,
think it was an accident. I think that they literally, it was an oops. I don't think they expected this to happen. That's just my own personal opinion. We know, like, the Cassiopeans have also talked about the Malaysian flight that went missing.
yeah,
I've covered that with Mr. Fox because it's fascinating. And that was an oops too. Like, the powers that be, basically the plane right now, according to the Cassiopeans, is being held in stasis because it slipped into like I don't want to say a portal, but it just kind of, and they're kind
I
of
saw an
holding.
amazing thing about that.
Yeah,
When
they're being held right now. The plane is being held by actually fourth density positive entities, because they know if they let the plane land 10 years later, they're going to be unalived, because they can't explain why these people, the plane just landed and they're still 10 years young. Anyway, so sometimes things happen that throw the controllers off, right? And I think sometimes we think that they have everything under such control, which for the most part they do, but you still have that wiggle room for oopsies to happen. And that's just what my gut tells me, was like they
yeah,
did not expect. They do talk about King Charles in this, and they said the prognosis is not good.
yeah,
So I think we kind of knew that. He
yeah.
looks sickly, but I think with Kate especially, and I think that's why, another reason why, and I'm not saying that William isn't having an affair. Like, that's a totally, two things can be true, right? Like, he can have an affair, but I think that's part of the reason why we see him stressed out too, is because I don't think they thought this was going to happen. That's just my opinion. I think that they are kind of in panic mode.
And we've also got, well, there's such a tangled web. So we've got all these possible scenarios, and there's so much coming out now in the UK. I really couldn't tell you how much on mainstream media because I don't watch it, but there's a lot more people aware of the risks now of these. And of course, if this came out that one or possibly two members of the royal family, because bearing in mind, turbo cancers are really associated with side effects. So it's a little bit like, where do these coincidences lie? The second thing is Kate is very loved and respected in the UK, very loved and respected. I'm not a royalist, but I haven't got a bad word to say against. I've never met her personally, but all I can say is, wow, it takes a lot of dignity to behave and conduct yourself. And also, when you're reading energy, to me, she's got a beautiful energy around her. I
She's a
just
human being. She was not
yeah.
born a man, guys. That's bunk. She was
She
not
is
born a man.
like another Princess Diana, really, in
Yeah.
terms of I personally don't know anyone that doesn't like Kate. I mean,
Yeah.
what's not like to not to like, quite honestly. So this is a real obstacle for the royal family. Now we've had these other weird things happen. So can I come on to the horses? Because I
Yeah.
think it all links
Let's
in.
do
So
it.
yesterday in London. So I've had horses. I work professionally with horses. I do work with a lot of rescue and traumatized horses, and horses are wild prey animals that are designed to bolt when they're in danger. So what happened yesterday is I think it was 8 horses who were on parade outside Buckingham Palace with very highly trained, riders on them. Apparently, a building site dropped a whole heavy load right by the horses, which startled them, and off they went. So these horses are trained to deal with gunshots, with drums, with crowds, with close proximity, because no prey animal likes to not be able to get away and be entangled in. But
Right.
these horses are really, really well trained, as are the riders. So actually, however well trained you are, any horse, if you dropped a heavy building load next to it, is likely to bolt. So
Yeah.
for me,
Absolutely.
that makes sense that they bolted through their riders, and 2 of them are in really serious condition. It's awful, and one of them's covered in blood running through the streets of London. So, as a horse person, the situation makes sense that a horse, however well trained, if that extreme thing happened, that could happen. However, with my other hat on, timing is everything. And whatever energetics are at play worldwide, the fact that this happened to happen yesterday, the last time we saw something weird with horses in London was the day that the old Rothschild died. So,
Klaus
just
just the Klaus guy. I don't want to say his full name. Didn't he?
yeah,
Is it
I don't know, because
rare?
everyone's saying he was rushed into hospital, and we don't really know whether he's alive or not or anything. Because the whole point is, folks, is whatever's put out on social media, we don't know. They can choose what dates they put out someone's died. And unless you're their immediate family, and not even necessarily then, how are you going to really know? None of us mere mortals will know for sure anyway. All these sources that put out that they know, in my book, over these last years, there's very few people that really know what's going on. There's lots of theories, and this is all we're doing today. We're not pretending we know anything. We're just discussing how we see things, and where, for me, this is really significant. Obviously the Charles and Kate thing's really significant. We're still not seeing anything of Kate. I'd love to know from people in the audience if anyone's seen the children at all. And I mean really seen them. I don't mean a picture of them. There must be people that children are at school with them, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
uh, or live nearby in the village. I would really love to know sort of what's going on, because the whole thing is just so highly suspicious. And even though I do accept horses would bolt, and I just pray to God those poor horses are okay, because one of them, well, even the black one looked horribly lame when they loaded him onto a horse box, and the white one had lost a lot of blood, and one of them's in veterinary hospital, I think, in quite a serious condition. It's really, really hard to know what's going on. There's something very odd with the timing of all this.
Yeah, I'm going to say too, when you're saying this as well, and again, I do think in a lot of ways what happened with Kate and maybe even with the horses might have just been purely an accident, from the nefarious side with Kate, but just with the horses, maybe just something happened. However, putting another perspective, we hear a lot about the horsemen, the horses in these, not just biblical texts, but in a lot of text,
Yeah.
they're significant for like timeline shifts or new eras coming. And have you heard, Catherine, in our audience, have you heard the Nostradamus prediction about Harry?
Can you cover it for people? Yeah.
There is allegedly now Nostradamus, I've studied Nostradamus. A lot of his predictions are pretty vague. Like they're pretty like you can kind of make it fit a lot of different things. But I'm not going to take away from that. What's interesting is they talk about that there will be a King Henry the Ninth. And Harry, of course, is a nickname for Henry. And seeing that Prince Harry is the only Henry around in the royal family right now. Like none of the kids, none of the next generation is named Henry. It's very suspicious with what's happening with Kate. So the nefarious side of me, what's going on with William, but of course, then you've got the three children also standing in the way
Yeah.
of Harry too, because Harry's not,
No,
you know,
Harry gets
Charles.
bypassed. He's below Kate and William's children in succession. Yeah.
Yeah. So even if something were to happen to William, it would then go to George. Something happens
Yeah.
to George, Charlotte, because now they've changed the
Yeah.
law that will hold their place in line, and then Louis, and then
Yeah.
Prince Harry. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of speculation about Meghan Markle and her being like a three-letter agency creation. I don't know. I don't know them personally. That could just be conspiracy. I don't know. Could be junk conspiracy.
Mm.
But it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how, because a lot of people are bringing up this Nostradamus prophecy. And is this what we're seeing unfolding? Because I know that Charles is not going to be sitting there for very long at
And
all.
this is the Charles thing is very significant because for those of us in the UK, I don't know, how much people in other parts of the world follow it, but that the thing is, it's been said for so long. Obviously, Charles had to wait till he's nearly 80, his mid-70s, to even get to the throne. There was all the hoo-ha over his private life. But also it was always said there's so many different prophecies that he wasn't going to be on the throne for very long.
Yeah,
And
and
now we've got
that
all
could just
this.
be common sense. That could just be
Yeah,
like, because what was a joke? We had a meme going around. I don't know, it's probably global, where it was like, what a privileged life you live when you don't get your first job until you're in your mid 70s. Like
yeah. But he has always worked really, really hard. He's from a very young age. And also, when you look at the supposed age of death of both his parents, they both died incredibly old, into their
yeah,
90s. So therefore, you would hope with all the modern medicine. But the great thing is he doesn't use the modern medicine. He's still's
right.
got his herb gardens, he's got his homeopathy and everything. He's very into all that. So, the prognosis should have been for a fairly long life for him. So there's very weird things going on. Couple that with we've got the weirdest weather in the UK ever, and we've got all the issues of the weather in Dubai. Energetically, there's something really weird going on with everything here. It really is. And
It's gonna get stranger, girl. We'll say we got the competition, the Mac Daddy competition that's coming up in the fall. I can't say the E word, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And we know now that with all the governments around the world, we now know that's one thing. You're right, Catherine. Like the one thing I do know is I don't really know anything,
yeah,
but one thing I do know is that it's never been country versus country. It's always been them and us. And
yeah.
so with the American competition coming up, we saw what happened last time. Like it's going to domino effect out. So I think things are just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder and stranger. Did you hear about the guy who just lit himself on fire here in
Yeah,
America with his
yeah,
manifesto? Which
yeah.
kind of scared me. I will say, because some things in his manifesto, I've been studying the Bolkovich, doing a big breakdown on the Romanovs, and y'all, the Bolkovich were promising the same things that the 17th letter in the alphabet was promising us on that board.
Can you go through what some of those are?
Free housing. You're going to get a house. You're going to get money from the government, Nasara. You're going to get gold given to you. You're going to have, all of a sudden, we're going to live under common law again. These are
Mm.
all things that Vladimir Lenin, was promising people
Mm.
through pamphlets, flyers, hidden pamphlets, hidden flyers, because it was illegal because the Romanovs, just like the back channels, the 8chan, the 4chan.
See, the
And
thing is, the free housing and the money could also fit. That's exactly what the New World Order are going to give you as well. So this is why, guys, when we're having these coffee chats, I know I'm repeating myself. We are not pretending we know anything. We're saying, look, these are all the questions. Where does it sit with you? What inspiration are you getting? Because the reason we're chatting this out loud is often when you talk about it with someone else and bounce ideas out, new perspectives come to light, which is so important for all of us. And also by talking about it, it's not just gossip because anyone who follows, I'll say his name once thing. I've been following Ollie Damagard for years, and he is an absolute expert on false flags events. I've mentioned him on a few of my other shows, but I can only mention once because you're not really allowed to say him on this platform. Now, the thing is with this is when you talk about these things, you make it so much more difficult for them to deliver their plans.
Yeah.
So
Just
we
be
don't
suspicious.
want
I think just be suspicious of everything.
be suspicious.
Grain of from whether somebody appears to be a good guy. I mean, let's talk about Mr. T, for example. Of course, that's who I'm cheering for, will say in this upcoming competition, but I'm still taking it with a grain of salt. I'm not going to be fully invested in the fact that this is going to be the savior that's going to throw all the bad stuff out, because that's what the Russians believed about Lenin. And look what happened.
And
I
also,
don't
he has had a term before, and he wasn't able to do a lot of the stuff because
know.
for whatever reason, I mean, I personally believe he had some really bad people in his team. But, we all talk about our own intuition, our own discernment. Well, these people who are really good at it still get caught out. So that's another thing I wanted to bring up today. Is like, you're allowed to not know, you're allowed to get it wrong because there's no one that gets it right all the time. Look at how many really good people have been fooled and it will continue to be fooled. So it's so complex. And there's so many of the E words, the nominating new leaders, going on in so many of the European countries and the UK this year. So it's literally, there's so many places supposedly up for grab, but how much they're really up for grab and how much it's really decided who's going in next. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, I don't even know how many prime ministers we've had in the UK over the last few years, but a
I know
lot.
you guys go through prime ministers like toilet
But
paper.
we don't. No, but that's the problem. We don't normally. It's only at the moment that we are. So
So is
again,
Evan trying to dysregulate you guys, like like unground you? I mean, and this is a thing. My grandfather used to say this all the time. My grandfather had a near-death experience. He would tell this to us all the time. He'd say, "Kids, they can take everything away from you.
yeah.
Anything you think they can take it away from you. The one thing they can't take away from you is who you are, your character." And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I think that's why we promote that, not because, we know more than anyone, Catherine, but through our own experiences, working on yourself is the only way to really ensure your own freedom, is to really take your own sovereignty, working on yourself, doing your shadow work, taking control of your own health, doing your own research. Because sure as hell, if you allow somebody else to take care of you, to do it for you, then that's a new set of controllers coming in to control you.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And we've got to keep asking these questions. And the thing is everyone's so many people are outraged about how dare you question someone, she's a young mum with cancer. Well, how dare you not? If you're genuinely
Yeah.
concerned about someone and they're missing in action, then how dare you not ask? I don't, if that was in me in that situation, I'd be sure as hell hoping that people would keep the pressure up and keep asking what's going on. This doesn't make sense. And we're seeing so many people from all walks of life, even mainstream media, saying this just doesn't make sense.
Uh-huh.
And the thing is, these things are easy to put right, very
Yeah.
easy to put right. So oh, what tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. And seriously, this is what we're seeing now. It's like, I honestly don't know. I know there's something seriously wrong.
Yeah.
I don't even understand how something is awful. And I haven't seen the dangers, but the real details. But I don't understand how even the accident with the horses could happen. I don't understand, even if you don't know anything about horses, how you would let this happen. I just, there's certain, when everything's so meticulously planned, it's really, really concerning to me on so many different levels.
The horses could have been a wag the dog situation too.
Yeah,
Like maybe Jack the Ripper was that, a distraction. It
the
could
distraction is where you go first, Bryce. Yeah.
it could be like that the Cape Middleton, because people like us, because the Cassie. I mean, you guys, the one thing I've learned from the Cassiopeans too is this is why I keep promoting the law of one as well. The powers that be know the law of one.
Yeah.
Know it. They know what's going on. They're following it. So, but service to self. So so even if you don't practice it yourself or believe it, if you know it, you can know why they're doing what they're doing. That's why, the Cassiopeans say knowledge protects, knowledge is power, and knowledge is infinite. You're never going to stop learning. And the thing about it is, that's why, when they started saying that all these bad guys had capitulated, well, hold on. If you've studied the law of one and you know the service to self path that they're on, you would know that was bullshit.
Yeah.
Because to capitulate is to surrender to someone else. That's service to others. So they're not going to work their whole lives to go
Exactly.
to
And
then just
also, the law of one, sorry, I just interrupted then. There's a bit of a delay. The law of one, which you introduced me to, and I just really resonates with me. The more I listen, I've been listening to a lot of different things on it recently. And the thing is, it just makes sense from an energy point of view. But the point is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I don't know as much about it as you, Bryce, but with the law of one, service to self or service to others are both accepted paths. It's
Yep.
God or whatever you want to call it, the creator doesn't judge one as better than themselves.
Yep.
So when someone's on the service to self, to them, they've got as much right to be on that as we have for service to others. And also, when you look at service to others, and this is a little bit of a silly oversimplification, but I hope you get my point. So look at people who are massive empaths and look at people who quite often overgive at the expense of themselves. Well,
Yeah.
that's not healthy either.
Oh,
So
that's
just
martyrdom.
thinking that this is absolutely perfect, this
Yep.
path, the self as to others, and the service to self is absolutely not, is not, look at a professional Olympic athlete
Yeah.
and the decisions they have to make, which are all about themselves. Now, I'm not saying they're bad people at all, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is this black and white thinking of that's and completely wrong and that's completely right. It isn't as simple as that
No,
energetically.
it's not at all. And that's why I love the law. Yeah, you're right, because it's the law of one. It's
Mm.
we're all part of the one. And so basically on third density, and you're right, because we're on third density. Third density is the density of choice, of polarity. So this is the last stop before you either go this way or that way. Now, if you go service to others, like where we want to go, or service to self, where the bad guys want to go, now eventually the service to others has to connect back to our service to self has to connect back into, because there's no creation in
Yeah.
service to self, so they have to bleed back in at some point. So it's your choices. Do you want to go this path, or do you want to go that path? Because they're eventually going to lead back, and that's why people like, we got to get them off our planet. No, this is their planet too. And if you know that from the law of one, you can play your cards differently to protect yourself. And I love you talk about the empathic side of things, Catherine, because I see that so manipulated. If you
Mm.
read the law of one, martyrdom is a negative polarity.
Yeah.
So for all those people who try to shame Catherine and me for having sponsors on our channel, you're promoting the service to self side, not the service to other side, because you can't help other people if you yourself don't have the energy, don't have the energetic nutrients, you can't do that, right? You can't service if you're not functioning. So, and I will say too, one thing that's interesting about the law of one, and why this explains why the service to self path is so intense. You have to be 94% service to self in order to graduate service to self. In order to graduate service to others, 51%.
Mm.
So if you could think somebody's the biggest asshole that ever lived, but they might be graduating service to others because the bulk of their energy is empathetic, does have compassion, does want to help other people. They just might be a little jaded at the same time. Right? So there's way more forgiveness and wiggle room in the service to others path than the service to self. Now, this is what's interesting too, Catherine, and why the Cassiopeans say that we're on extended time right now. We were already supposed to have, because our planet itself was supposed to flip 40 negative or positive. The planet was supposed to evolve as well. And so the negative people would have to leave. Now, the Cassiopeans say we're on borrowed time right now,
Mm.
because the only souls on the earth right now, there are 50% organic portals who are people who don't have souls, but the people who have souls on this planet are all old souls. There are no new souls on the planet right now because of what we're going through. A new soul couldn't handle this, right? And a lot of people are in the gray, which means that they are close to graduating, but they haven't quite made that decision yet. Now, what this group has done, the service to self, because in order for them to generate more power for themselves, they have to take it from us or get us to turn negative, get us to turn negative. They've done such a brilliant job playing their path that so many people who are eligible to harvest positive are still stuck in the gray.
Yeah.
So your choices matter. Your choices absolutely matter. That is why you're on third density. Everything you do matters. And so if you're sitting around waiting for someone to come save you, that's a negative polarity.
And also, when people are sitting there preaching but not living it, children don't do what you say, they do what you do. They follow what you do. And so do most discerning adults at some stage. So you can get away with having the gift of the gab for so
Yep.
long. But at the end of the day, people are not going to follow your advice or seriously listen about your advice unless they get a feel that you're really walking the talk. So there's so many people that are sitting there preaching the whiter than white, the holier than thou approach, and actually behaving in really despicable ways to other people, really shaming, really negative, really putting them down, not supporting them. Service to others. You support each other. Life is not a competition. It's a collaborative effort towards really better future. And this is why I'm so strict about, I mean, it sounds really childish, but about what are you putting in the comments? Because AI, we are programming it the whole time. We are putting out this energy field the whole time. And if we're behaving in that way, in that negative way and shaming others, all you're doing is strengthening the side that you're supposedly talking against.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. In the yoga world, my world, I would lose my authorization if I quit practicing because you have to be the example. You have to be, it's your responsibility. And I would say that too. That's the one thing about the dark side. They say that Hillary, we'll just say Hillary, that she stinks. I've heard people say she smells really bad. Okay. Well, that's when you're practicing darkness and you're on the service of self path, you're going to see that in people's bodies. You're going to see their body falling apart. You're going to see, that's part of their choices, right? So yeah, I tend to only follow teachers that I know for a fact are practicing what they preach. I still take things with a grain of salt, though. I still maintain my own sovereign mind. There are a lot of things about my teacher in India that I love him, but there are things he says that I don't agree with, and that's okay. He's still my teacher. It's
Mm.
okay that I don't agree with him on everything. He's an Indian Param guru. I'm a white girl from Georgia. We're gonna have differences, right? So yeah, so I maybe we could even talk Mr. Fox into coming on, Catherine, and doing an even deeper
I think
discussion.
we need to, because I think this is such a key. I must send you. There was another, before we decided to talk about this, there was another video I was going to do some clips from and send you, which really covered the laws one. So as soon as I get a moment, honestly, I'm not going to bore people with what my last few weeks have been like, but suffice to say, I've not had much sleep. But all good, sort of. But in all seriousness, there's so much to this, and there's so much we can learn. And for me, the Kate business, it's discernment.
Mhm.
It's going back to the people that pulls out the false flags. If you keep talking about these things, you make it harder and harder if there is something nefarious going on. If there's nothing nefarious going on, I really don't think Kate would be remotely be offended by anything we've talked about. I
No,
really.
because it's empathy. We also, as you said, as Kate's around my age, like I have empathy for her. I want, girl, listen, you can come stay in my little house in Atlanta if you want. Like she's a human being.
Yeah.
She and that's one thing to remember too, guys. We talk about organic portals being people without souls. Now remember, you have to have a soul to harvest. So what does that mean about the bad guys? They also have souls.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
that's hard to understand, but they also have soul. They've made a choice with their
Yeah.
soul.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's really fascinating. So keep the conversations going. Let us know what you think. Please be very careful with trigger words in the comments, because the censorship has gone a little bit haywire again at the moment. So you guys know as well as we do what words you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. So please respect that. We'd really appreciate it. And we will be back next week on Bryce's channel, Esoteric Atlanta. If you are not subscribed to our channels on this platform and also our Rumble channels, I'm just going to say it, please do. Please go and check out the latest interview with Kathy that went up this week as well. Really interesting stuff that she covered again. Really useful, constructive stuff for all of us. And can't wait to see you back next week.
I know. Who knows what's going to happen in a week's time? We might have a whole new Cassiopean reading to look at.
Yeah, I just hope there's no more horses involved. Yeah.
I know.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. My goal is to inspire as many people as I can to live their best lives, to stay curious and to raise their consciousness and that of the collective. So to do this, I need to reach as many people as possible, and this needs your help. If you feel drawn, would you be willing to share your favourite episode with 5 different people? This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. If you feel drawn to do that, I will be very, very grateful. All the links and discount codes where applicable for all the products that I support are on my 2 websites, CatherineEdwards.life and CatherineEdwards.academy.com. All of the products are personally tried and tested by me, my family, and my clients. And finally, please do press the follow or subscribe button, depending which platform you're listening on. And above all, stay curious and stay free.